right, good morning. My name is Monica Brewer. I am your statewide coordinator for Gifted and Talented. Today's agenda, it is 9. I have 93 participants with us this morning. So I want to say thank you for joining us in this new series. And hopefully, someone will tell me in the chat you can hear me. So I'm assuming you can. Marvelous. And we're going to get started because I don't want to keep your whole, yay, you can hear me? Marvelous. We're trying new technology here. So I'm not at my desk. I'm in a different little spot with this big screen and a nice little remote speaker. So we're going to try this out. So today we're going to look at some program initiatives for the year. We're going to talk about HB3 and then take some answers and questions. And then we'll also look at some things with the state plan. And the best use of funds is our topic goal for this time. And then I got the chat on this side on my laptop, so we're going to go there. So I wanted to make a clarification on the state plan on one section of the student assessment. And I will be sending this also out in writing. So as you know, 2.15 states assessment opportunities for gifted and talented identification are made available to students at least once per year. We've had several questions on that. We've gone back and forth with our legal department, and this is the final ruling. I will be sharing this out, as I said, on the website and then also in the listserv. So as the state plan requires a minimum of assessment for GT program participation for once a year, it is the legal decision that the district must still assess that student, even if a prior assessment result is considered valid. So those just by the district or more than 1 year. In short, the continued validity of a GT assessment cannot be used to counter the state plan requirement of annual assessment for GT program participation, which would include the area previously assessed and otherwise considered valid. So I do know that there's several of us, we've gone on the premise that once a test has been administered and has been valid for a year or two, that a student may not be reassessed until maybe 2 years later. But our legal ruling is it does not matter. Validity and reliability does not take place in this ruling of our state plan. So basically, if a parent or a student or if a teacher deems that a student should be referred for assessment, they should have that opportunity at least once a year to be assessed. Now, I know some of you, that's going to be a big game changer for some of you in your districts. So you need to start thinking, how do you address that? How do you address the communication with parents, especially when you're looking at different venues, different tests, but then also being honoring that child and looking at the emotional stress that testing could occur. And how do you handle that? And how do you have those conversations with your parents and students about multiple year testing for placement? And then thinking also, it goes back to, as we've been thinking a lot in the last year and this year, of what are our program services, what are our assessments, and how do they interact, and how do they play forth? So think about that. We will come back and address this a little more in depth, but I wanted to put that out to you when we get into our identification piece of conversation. But I wanted to make sure you knew this and it was out there. And so, as I said, I will be putting it out in the listserv and then putting this legal clarification also on new FAQ. So. Too many devices. And we'll get to chats in a little bit and from there. So we're going to start looking at fidelity of implementation. So I hope that you give me some feedback on this plan of a series that we're going to do on implementation. I'm going to start it out, but I'm going to ask that some of you participate later on in our program services and how do we do that, and how to share your best practices of what you're doing on the campus. So I'm calling these GT Tuesdays. And so every first and third Tuesday of the month, so that starting today, we will do, the next one will be the 15th, then November 5th, then November 19th. We will be off the routine because of Gifted 19, which is our Target conference and the holidays. And then we will also go back, our last one for this semester will be 1210. So the first one will be on the first Tuesdays are at 9 a.m. and the third Tuesdays are at 1 p.m. So I wanted to alternate the time. So if you will not be always locked down to a certain time every day, every time we have this meeting. And I will be recording these, and the recording will we'll be creating a new web page for these recordings, and then for also the PowerPoint. So the PDF of this PowerPoint will be up. The recording link will be available, and then I will do responses to the chat also on that page. So that will be the page where you can go get your resources, get your information, follow up, and have this as a running log. So I hope that is beneficial to you. Let me know if this is something you would truly feel there's a need for. Because if there's no need, we're going to commit to 1210. And so after that, we will reconsider. So these are some of the topics for this series. We will start with talking about, we're going to start actually the use of funds and best investment. And then we're going to touch on stabilizing your foundation today. But then we will also talk about identification, placement options, meeting the needs through your curriculum, being equitable in your services, progress monitoring, acceleration, professional development, talking about gifted and talented education, your program evaluation, and then we're going to do one specializing specifically in small and rural schools, and then we're going to have a conversation about charter schools and GT education. So if you have other topics you would like to address and conversate about, let me know. We will add those in, but this is where we're looking at starting. We will also bring in some more experts from the field, experts from the university. So these are going to be some running topics that we'll talk about. And if you have specific questions in certain areas, please share those so we can make sure that they're addressed as we move forward. All right. So the other hotbed topic is House Bill 3, School Finance and GT. So that you know, I'm just going to do a brief recap. It did amend Texas Education Code 29.122. Each school district shall adopt a criteria for identifying and serving gifted and talented students. That is not new, that has been in law. But the new piece to that is you are to adopt a local policy regarding the use of funds to support the district's program for gifted and talented students. We'll talk about this policy a little bit later also in this presentation. TASB is providing a policy update. Maybe it should be the mid of this month, if not in November. And so it does add a new section, section 29.124. Each school district shall annually certify to the commissioner that the district has established a program for GT students. If the district has failed to comply, the commissioner may reduce the total amount of funding in which the district is entitled. So that's, in another word, that is your GT allotment. The commissioner may restore all or partial funding withheld if the district complies. So we're going to talk about the processing for certification. You are to report to the commissioner regarding the use of funds on the district's programming, and there is no limit on the number of students a district may identify as GT or serve under the district's program for GT students. So as you know, so this is where we are in our time frame. We have started school. HB3 was implemented September 1. So your next target goal is here with October 31st, with our first piece is our district level identification. Our second piece, you still are to serve and identify students by March 1st. June 21st, with that June team snapshot, you're also submitting your pick 21 of how you used your funds. So you are to always continuously identify and serve your students. So whenever your identification window is, you still do that. Still code your students for GT services. So those who are identified and you're serving, make sure that their coding is done correctly. Right. So basically, starting out this year, we're going to very low lift. We're going very, we're approaching this, rolling this process out very simply. So you're going to annually certify that you have a program that's consistent with the state plan. You're going to report to the commissioner regarding the use of your funds, and you're going to certify to TA via the new PEAMS indicator, which is a district layer, not a campus layer. So, as I stated earlier, we're still identifying per each reporting process for students who are identified and served, and then we have the new identifiers for your district level, only reported once in October, and here are our 5 categories. So you have a pull-out program, 01, if that is your option in your district, 02 for push-in. Push-in is you have a teacher visiting or a coordinator that goes in, make sure that services are being provided. How you do that as a district, as a local district decision. 03, full-time gifted only in those core subject areas with their peers. At 04, full-time inclusion, which is majority of what most districts are doing with differentiated instruction, cluster grouping or flexible groups. And then 05, you have a special day school, which is administered separately from a regular school, but is organized to serve gifted and talented students. So those are our 5 codes. There is one other, which is a 00, but no one should be using that one. I'm just gonna put that one out there. 00 is you have no program. So hopefully everyone is doing 0 through 5. Probably most are doing a 04, and then a few doing a 01. All right. So as you know, there is a PowerPoint on the web that I did. Go back, sorry. Yeah, so there is a link to that PowerPoint on this district level coding. So if you have further questions or looking for more examples, it is there. And then use of funds. You are to record your expenditures in program intent code 21. So that's how you're going to track your GT funding during this process. Make sure the submission, as I stated earlier, is still in June. So you need, as a local district, determine your expenditures, how you're going to spend those funds. Those funds we have provided to you. Go to the next slide. I'll talk about this a little bit more because I have some conversations about that in the next piece. So our next one is charter schools. Same options for charter schools. You can, if you want to know if you're serving GT students currently, let me know. I have your funding amount if you want that, or your ESC coordinator can get that for you. You're following the same guidelines. So if you want to put in place to serve GT students, you may do that. You do not, so we're still working on those ground rules. If you do serve students, you are still to follow the state plan and still provide those still same level of services. So TASB, as I stated earlier, will be sending an update in November. Maybe mid-October, it might come out early, but estimated November. And then with that, they will address, or you will find it under program services at the program evaluation, how you should address reporting and certifying the effective use of funds and a schedule of adoption. So you just need to think about that when that book comes out, all of the laws that's been updated that they're providing will come together. So there will be no separate need to do that. So to restore funds, if you have funds, if you're found out of compliance, you have to come up with a district plan. Sorry, y'all. Okay. So basically, if you're found in non-compliance and you have to do a action plan, this is different from the action plan that we have addressed in the state plan. This is an action plan for non-compliance, and this is going to be very fast and furious to get you into compliance so that you will not, so that we can restore your funds in a timely manner. So you have to think about what are your short terms to achieve compliance and those long-term goals to maintain that compliance. So hopefully we will not have a lot of districts at this level, hopefully none, but you know, there are things that happen. And so if you have not seen the video, the HB 3 and 30, that was just a brief, fast and furious version of it. There's a little bit more on the video actually, and there's a PDF of that available. I am always available to conversate about that. So if you have further questions, you can send your questions to myself or to the hb3@tea.texas.gov website email address to have your questions answered as we go forth. All right. As you know, the state plan was updated in June and approved by the State Board of Education. We will have to take it back to the State Board for the changes purring with the repeal of the section 42.156. So with that repeal, we'll have to take that and then the sections, those two columns out of two standards out of the Fidelity of Services on funding will be removed due to the changes with House Bill 3. So those will be the only proposed changes at this time. So these are our new sections. For those who have not been following along the whole 2-3 year journey, but I want to also thank you for those who did go with us on this journey of your input. It has been very valued. You have done a great job in making sure we have a document that we all feel is usable, is friendly, and accomplishable. So we're going to start today looking at our section for Fidelity of Services. So how you're being accountable to your district, to your students, and looking at the effectiveness of your assessments, your services, and we're going to look at your policies of just a touch. But today we're going to mainly address a couple of areas. Is the funding. We'll hit your program guide and your evaluation of services. Then I'm definitely going to open the floor and go back to our chat and answer questions and go from there. All right. So as I said, these will be the two pieces that will be coming out of the state plan. Currently at this point, now, always there's a potentiality the state board may choose to put it in as a different form of language, a different piece of rule, because they have section Chapter 89, they can put it there as a part of their rule. So those are some options that can be put forth. So that will be at our leadership discretion and then also at the state board. So we're going to talk about best use of funds, because funds for program services must be determined effective and consistent with the standards set forth in our state plan. And so going there, we're going to look at the funding amount. So as you know, funding was reallocated into the basic allotment with the mindset of using those funds, determining how you use those funds to support your program services. So how you do that as a district is totally up to you. The rules that you put around that is your district's guidelines. That's where we are right now in this state. Looking at how do you allocate your funding, how do you use those funds. Everyone is under so many different misconceptions of either we have no funding, all our funds are gone, but those funds were reallocated. Just remember, they were reallocated. The amounts are posted on the website. Unless you're a charter school, you can ask me for those. So you have to still think. And then, a lot of you still were using local funds, so you're still going to add that basic allotment and your local funds into that, and then think about how you're coding that information correctly. And then that kind of leads into your expenditures. What is locally acceptable? We're going to talk about some of the previous things we've done with before House Bill 3, but then thinking, what are your guidelines? How are you going to document your expenditures? How you're documenting the funds that you're using? And what are your parameters on spending? So basically, you got to think, how are you using your funds? How are you going to say these funds are tied back to GT services when you turn in your PIC 21? Will it be a total zero, or will it be, $5 or $5,000? So that's, a local district decision, but so you have to ask yourself as a district, were the funds used for GT students? Down and about, a lot of administrators thought they have free rein money, but you still have to say its best use is still used for students. So were these funds used for GT students? How do they align with your services? And how do you track that? How do you denote that in your guidelines, in your processing? And some of this can be in your internal guidelines, in your program, in your services. Some of it may be outside of that parameter. So can that expenditure be linked back to a standard in the state plan? If you're buying books, is it a part of your array of options? Is it a part of your curriculum? How do it align? How do you say, this is how we're providing services, and thinking of that? And then when you're explaining it to others, of how can we tie these things back? When they start thinking, we just have free rein on use of funds. So if you remember prior years, these were some allowable expenditures. You may still use these allowable expenditures as a part of your district policies, your district procedures. Textbooks and instructional materials are still designed to meet the needs of our gifted and talented students. Your salaries as GTA administrators can strictly be, if you're 100%, you can do that. You're 50%, you can do that. So now some of those parameters have been kind of lifted, but you got to think, how you do that. If you want to pay stipends, you still have those funds. Your GT salary for your specialists who serve GT students, it can come out of that allotment and be tracked back to PIC 21. teachers may be split funded and paid salaries from the GT supplemental state allotment program. So now you as a local district can determine they're split funded if they're providing any level of GT services. It can come from GT funds. It can be tracked back to your GT allocation. I would start thinking of it as not an allotment, think of it as an allocation. You have allocated funds in your budget in the basic allotment, and move that to your mindset. There is allocated funds for gifted and talented. Now, with your district, I don't know what the conversations are out there, but that's the way I would approach it, is there are allocated funds out there. So that goes back to if they're serving mixed students, so as their full inclusion, part of their regular duties, they can be paid out of either or. All GT, basic allot is all it worked. High school, because all of that moved into that one fund. Your professional development expenditures, your advanced placement, your GT services, your after-school program services, your math counts, your Odyssey of the Mind academic decathlon, your robotics programs, those things that you use to provide GT services, all can be a part of allowable services funding. So a couple of things you need to consider as you're thinking about this. As I said, this is going to be one of those iffy areas. You as a district will have to determine if you're going to change or stay on this track of those who are serving mixed students, and then the calls for teacher certifications. So you have an option not to include those or to include those. So I think that's a local conversation that you may want to consider when you're thinking, what can we or can we not do? And then for some who've never heard of the basic, the program intent code 21, I just wanted to break it down for you. So basically, pick 11, which is the basic educational services, which are your basic curriculum available to all students. And so it's broken down into your basic educational services, your alternative education programs, 26 and 28. So those are basic, which is available to all. But then pick 21 and GT falls under enhanced services for those students who get, bilingual, SPED, gifted and talented, as for to assess students and provide instruction. So that's where we lie under enhanced services under pick 21. So you're going to use your pick 21 to track your GT funds. You're going to report that once again, and then make sure that you're submitting that at the, as you go. Sometimes it's you, sometimes it's going to be someone in your budget and accounting department who is running this, making sure that those expenditures are there. I wanted to provide a copy of what does that program, what that spreadsheet looks like. So this is the breakdown pretty much of that spreadsheet of what's included. You have instruction, curriculum and development, staff development, those are your codes there. Then it breaks down into instructional supports, to central administration, where your part of your fees are coming from, and then your other, your community service project parts, your shared agreements. So those things all fall into pick 21. So this is what that accounting looks like. So someone definitely at your budgeting accounting knows how this flows. Some of you know how this is broken up because your district has really made sure that you understand the pieces of this. So as you look forward, how do you break this? How do you include this, making sure that all of your materials are there? So basically, remember when you looked at the pick 21, Courses that included your GT program, your advanced placement courses that were a part of it. It did exclude honors, college preparatory courses. Now you have to remember, you're defining your program services. So if your dual credit is a part, if advanced placement is a part of your expenses, now that is something that needs to be accounted to pick 21 and not pick 11. So be very careful of what you're providing, those extra services and how it's being defined, because all dual credit courses will not be, should not be allocated to GT specifically. Some of them will, some of them won't. And remember, certain areas have more funding than we do, and they have that accessibility. So be very clear on how you're defining your program services and what you are providing as a district. All right, I'm fixing to so I want to make sure before I go there. So if you have some best practices out there that you're doing, I have unmuted. I've allowed you to unmute yourself. If anyone would like to share, feel free to unmute and join us. Hold on, I have to.
Probably just need that. I'm
Hello, Monica.
Monica, this is Paulina from TAGT. If you are speaking, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can, yes.
Marvelous. All right. So I'm going back to, I'm looking at the chat, and I'll start at the last one. So we have specific GT camps in the summer. Is it still allowable for pick 21? Yes, it is. So your summer camps, if they're specific to GT, please do allocate that to your program intent code 21. And you can go from there. And then I see another one. So this is, we struggle with our identification processes. Could someone please share your process, including assessments and matrices with us? And this is Cardoff at ruralisd.net. You see that in the group. So we will also make sure that we include that in our identification conversation later. I think I answered. So GT field trips. So GT field trips are allowable. I would say also consider the rationale behind that GT field trip and how you're using that GT field trip. Is it program related or is it just a celebration gift? Okay. You want to make sure, I just want to put it in your mindset that at this point in time, we're going to be very open and very observable, and you're going to have a lot of parents who are going to ask to see your budgets, to see how you're using funds. And you might want to communicate that to your leadership, because we have the type of parents who are going to ask those questions. And they're going to want to make sure those who are our believers in gifted programs and those who are naysayers of gifted programs. And so you want to make sure as much as possible that all of your programming, all of your services ties back to being consistent services related back to the state plan. So when you have a field trip and you're saying we're going to Dallas just to go to the state fair, is that a real valid field trip? Or is it an award for being a part of the Gifted and Talented program? Now, if you had a whole full lesson, ideas, a whole TPSP project that was a pursuit of passion around the experience, the things you could do, the learning, the learning velocity, the speed, all of those things, how much money, the calculations around that might be a little different, because now it's a lesson and it's an activity that we're doing and not just it's a good time to go have. So I think about those kind of things when you think about how you're using your funds when you're using it with your field trips. Because there's going to be other guidelines that your districts have on place, but you got to remember you're under a new level of scrutiny now of how we're using our funds and how we're going forward. All right. So I got 7, but I'm going to go right back up for a minute. Thank you, Kelsey. So which document, Meredith Austin, so this is a statement for Meredith, your HB3 document. Can you share that as an editable format? Also in that document, I know Meredith shared that on the Tag It Connect. If Meredith, if you will feel free to share that with me, I will put it on our resource page that we're building to go with these group chats, these Zoom meetings. So make sure you just put a copyright on it, and then we will go from there. I scroll back down. Thank you, Meredith. She got it. All right. We have another assessment. So Ida, so you need to know about your funding. I will make sure you get that. I see your address. I will take care of that.
Thank you, Monica.
You're welcome. Okay, so I want to say this is Wade. What is the measure, i.e. 20% threshold? Is there a phase in? Somebody, I'm not sure who put this one on there. Can you clarify for me? What are you asking? All right, you can come back or you can type back in. So the students have to be identified by October 31st. So No. You should have students who walked in your building already identified, ready to be served. You are at the October 31st PEMS accounting. That's going to be your first, just full snapshot of capturing those students you've been identifying and serving. This October 31st snapshot is going to capture those students, and you're going to capture your district program services. Remember, district-wide program services. So making sure your PEMS people know we're doing full inclusion and pullout. They should know that up front. Know they need to code a 01 and a 04 as they go forward. So let me scroll back up and then I'll come back to that. Got that one. We talked about field trips. So Diane Wood, as does on-ramps, qualified providing services for GT like AP. That goes back to you as a district, looking at those, and we'll address some of this also further when we talk about curriculum and instruction and your program options. Here's the thing, look at the programs, look at AP. As you probably have heard me say before, and you've heard others from College Board, you have to remember AP programming was not designed for gifted and talented students. AP programming, advanced placement programming, was designed to get as many students into college readiness and to get into college courses prior to going to college. That's the design of College Board. That is the design of AP programs, to get as many students there, to get them prepared and ready. So when you think about, and all of our language for AP programs is that they have to be differentiated instruction for our AP, for our GT students. So if you have a program that's for all, and we just talked about with our PIC Code 21, it's not enhanced services. It is not a differentiated in services. So when you say, if we want to use on-ramps, is on-ramps differentiating their instruction for GT students, or is it something for all? Can you change it up? Can you vary, put that differentiated, that depth, that complexity into their program services? If you can't, you need to reconsider what are your options. We need to do a justice to our students to say we want the quality services. We have been working hard to get them into our programs and into our services. We do a job of making sure they have all the great experiences in elementary school. We slack up in middle and we kind of fall off in high school. What does it look for GT? And remember, our program is for these students to come out with some quality professional performances and products. And if we're relying on those programs and services out there that are not catered to our children, then we are doing a disservice in gifted ed. And we need to start thinking about how we're going to improve our services if we're going to do that. So, and this is that prime opportunity to have those conversations of what are you looking at your curriculum? What are you looking at as your part of your services? And so I would say take an honest look at on-ramps, honest look at your AP program in your district and what is going on and what is being taught. Are they differentiating their instruction? Are they bringing in those pieces to make it that depth and that complexity? When you do your dual credit, you have to remember, if it's taught by a college professor, there's no control we have over that. The state, there is no control. But if it's someone who's being taught by a local teacher in your district, but it's still a college, you have a more of a say then. Okay, so I will say take it in those pieces, and looking at what are you looking at? What are your services? Where are you going? And then does it bring that difference? And if it's going to be something that you want to use. I hope that answered that question. So the question was, and I just saw that. Oh, I went back to the bottom. So if you're looking at, the question is, could I speak on what it looks like for AP to be included in GT? So those AP teachers are doing above and beyond with their curriculum. And so they have their set forth syllabus already set for AP. We know that for sure. But then when you step aside and say, let's lay on the next component of depth and complexity, what kind of project, what kind of performance are they going to do beyond what the regular student is going to do during that, in that process? How does that look? That's where we have to get to. If you look at the GT2 Teacher Toolkit 2, there are some things that it talks about how to incorporate depth and complexity. One of the things that we're doing this year, we're building out a depth and complexity workshop specifically for secondary teachers. So it's really getting your secondary teachers to start thinking beyond just teaching the syllabus, beyond teaching just the product. And it might take, you set out a core set of 4, and you build out from those 4 teachers in that core of how do you differentiate your instruction? How do you build it out to bring it to the next level? If they're saying they're at that rigorous level, make sure it's at that rigorous level. But where's the creativity piece into what they're teaching? Where is that, that flexibility? What are they doing? How is that capstone building out the services that we're looking for? So incorporating those other pieces, and it might be you're phasing in bits and pieces of piece of a project, or into or building in a TPSP time, or you're building in maybe the elective for the GT Independent Study Mentorship, where it falls in line with it. It's not, and it's a coordinating with those teachers of you got a layer of all these core, but you got these kids doing something out of that core that is into their interest level, but producing that product, that performance that is going to look professional, that can get them a job maybe once they walk out. Or when you start looking at South by Southwest here in Austin, and you see that student component, we should have students competing in that at the highest level. This says they have gone through our GT program, our services, and they have that quality product. They have that quality performance that can stand out there and is not just a poster board. But I'm telling you about my new product, Photoshop process, this new app that will change the world, that will change water over from mud. So, we got to think about what are we doing to help our children go to the next level. So I'm going to come off of that one for a minute. And let me go back to the bottom. So the question was, is there a template used to develop your budget? Currently, we do not have a template. I would suggest before we give you a template, talk to your budget department on how they lay out their budgets. And then we can have, then I think it will be a more feasible and usable if we then have that conversation after of looking at, and I'll go back for a moment. I'm not done. I forget the instruments that I'm using. At the very simplest budget, I would say look at this one right here. What you're reporting into the system for PIC 21. Now you might want to break out those pieces. So under instruction curriculum development, are you buying curriculum? Are you using curriculum? Are you buying books for your program services? Where do those pieces fall in? Staff development. What is your staff development? Are you servicing it out? Or are you bringing people in? Are you doing a book study? What are those pieces, and then what's the total of that? What is your instructional pieces? And that might be a part of your teacher salaries. How many are you paying for? What level are you paying of their salary? And then when you look at instructional leadership, those will possibly be your those coordinators who may be going on the campuses that are centrally based compared to school leadership, where you may have those who are campus based, and all their job is to coordinate your GT programs. Or you have an administrator, might be a piece of the administrator's job to be a part of that responsibility, as we say, for the campus. Your counselors, looking at how you're including your social and emotional. What are you looking at your evaluation? What are your testing process? I know in some districts, testing, those components is actually paid by the assessment department and not coming out of your GT funds. But I know in some districts, it's coming out of your GT funds for your assessments. So looking at those pieces, you may or may not have social work services. You may have no health services. But then what are your co-curricular, extracurricular activities? That will take in your field trips, your summer school, your out of school options. So you think about it that way. We can look at how to define this a little bit more, but I would hate to confuse the process when you're going into this. So I would say talk with your budgeting department and your accounting to ask what is the simplest way to think about your budget and making sure you're being, because it's easier to work smarter and then harder then I got to figure out how to convert this back over into this system. So going from there. So the question came, misclarification on field trip specific to GT. So it will come out of PIC 21. It will not come out of PIC 11. So PIC 21 is our GT funding amount and not of the 11. So if GT funds are being used for programs such as robotics and Destination Imagination, do 100% of the participating students have to be identified GT to be available to use GT funds? Prior to House Bill 3, I would say yes. After House Bill 3, that is a local district decision. So you can still, as a district, say no. It has to be, GT funds have to be specifically for GT, or you can open up that window. So that's the hard part of this conversation is we've been living on so many strictures of what we could not do. Now you have so many options what you can include and think about. And so that's the question. All right. So the question out there for reporting of your, so there should be who from the district reports their funding to TA. So there's really there is a budget person who works in PEAMS to report those funds, to generate those funds. So there's a PEAMS coordinator in budgeting. There's a PEAMS coordinator for the district level to put those codes at the district level, and then you at your campus level for students and going forward from that. So what are the allowances for purchasing food within the GT budget? So I would think about when you do your GT budget, so you will not be, I will think about what are your district guidelines already on food, because you do not want it become the GT budget to become the food budget. I'm gonna put it that way. Because there's, with this open parameter, I would say what are the guidelines for the basic allotment? Because I'm not sure if there were any guidelines for that. I know we did highly not recommend using GT funds for purchasing food. So you really don't, I would say try to stick away from using that. Okay, so the process of annual certification and the timeline. So right now, our process for annual certification is once a year, you will code your district code. You will continue to identify and serve your GT students. And then you will also complete and submit your PIC 21, which is your use of funding. Those are how we're looking at it at this time. So basically, it's October to June. So school year, this is the total cycle of the school year. Certain things are only reported once, certain things are reported every 6 weeks. And so how are your processing? So when a district has a larger GT expenditure than allocated funds, do those teachers who are not funded through the GT allotment also need to be coded? So any teacher that you have a part of your GT services, they need to have the GT code. And the reason why you need to be very clear on, no matter if how they're being paid for, it needs to be identified that this is GT. This is a person who's providing services for gifted and talented. It also proves the point of why you need if we ever go back to another level, we go back to being a special allotment. If you're not coding all of the teachers who are providing services, then you're giving away money. I will put it that way, because when we go to look at the report and you say you're providing this many services to, you have this many teachers providing services and you're expending this amount of money, there's no proof to say you need more money, because you're not denoting everyone that is providing services. You're not denoting all of the services that you're providing, district provided or not. So you can include that in your budget. You can include that in your PIC 21 so that it's clear and understandable that all of the funding that's been allocated is not coming from the state. There is district funds. We've known that for years. It's proving it and providing those services in the state is the best value interest, and it serves a point. And we have to be the ones who sell and show that, yes, it is a value needed service. And making sure when we provide those services, they are quality services. Okay, let me scroll back down. The coding is with HR. So whenever it's those teachers who are designated GT. So they are a GT service provider. When I used to be in the district, I always, which students were part of those programs, which courses. So you were able to identify, you can track, this is when they serve these students. So you can provide them with a knowledge base. These are the students that are GT and going from there. So let me clarify. So the annual certification, if you do the 3 pieces that you're doing, so the question was, when do you annually certify to the commissioner? These 3 pieces that we're talking about right now is you continue to identify and certify. I can pull that report. As we go through and you do your PIC 21, do your district level coding, I can pull that report. So at this point in time, there is nothing for you to turn in. There is nothing for you to do. We've tried to make this very simple and very user-friendly. At this time, all you have to do is do the mechanisms at your district level of coding, coding, coding. Coding for your identified and served students, coding for your district, coding for your budget, your expenditures. If you do those things, those can be pulled by the agency. Those are what we can pull to say, yes, I'll get the report. I got all of these 4s, I got all these 5s, I got all these 0s. Those 0s are gonna be my first flag. Those 0 is gonna be my first flag to say, oh, you're not providing services. Those will be my first points of contact. My next point, now that I can look and I can pull, oh, no, you're not identifying students and you're not serving students, because there's about 26 districts out there currently in the state that are not serving students. So we can pull those. Then you have your PIC 21. You report back, you use no funds. Because you said, I'm using, and I'm just going to use the example based on the question. You use all the district money to support your GT program, so we're not going to put that in PIC 21. Now that's a flag for me. So those are our flags right now. You do not serve any students. You do not code your district. You do not go forth and code your funding, how you spend your money. Then here's the wave of the flag. You have a district, you have a parent, you have a complaint that comes in that says you're out of compliance. You're not providing these services. You say you are, but you're not. Now you're at the next level of an automatic investigation. So that's how we're going to be looking at it. So at this time, there is no form to submit. There's no, process, that you have to turn in. We will be getting to that level, and that will be part of our stakeholder conversations later on what does being consistent with the state plan and how we evaluate that at the district level look. How do we do that as a state? And then how do we make sure that it is consistent and user-friendly for all school districts within the state? That's our next step, is to work on those pieces of the document. And then I'll come back to questions in a minute. So before we continue, just want to remind you, our next meeting will be October 15th at 1 p.m. If you have questions, this is my email address. You can also reach me through the gted@tea.texas.gov email. So a little bit about looking at your, as I call it, stabilizing your foundation. So being in compliance and accountability, so we're going to just a couple more slides. So basically your comprehensive manual. You should develop a comprehensive manual. I've seen a few, I've seen some conversations about those. So basically describing all of your GT programs, your services, your assessment, communication, which is accessible to parents, communities, and students, and includes your GT contact information. So we've had these conversations, and with the manual or the program, and just remember, you can have two. You can have one that is very public, very knowledgeable, for your community. And then you have one that is very internal, that is really addressing the needs of your program staff on how to operate your program, how to define everything, what do we mean by what do we mean by our assessments, which assessments, when do we give assessments, how do you do the appeal process. That would be more of your total internal, where who to contact for an appeal might be a part of your external. So think of it of two different, you can have two different, it doesn't have to tell everyone what your assessments are out there. So what is your program design? What are your options? Are you providing a pull-out program? Is it only K2? And then when we get to 3-5, it's more of we're providing classroom instruction. So what does it look like at your on those campuses? So when someone walks in and says, what are your program options? And then what services beyond those program options do you offer as a district? Are you offering after school? Do you do DI? Do we have a chess club? What are those things that are part of your GT services that goes beyond what are you doing in the day-to-day contact? Also going back to your program option, if you're doing a pull-out or pull-in, how many hours should they meet? We do not dictate at the state how many minutes should meet, but you may have that in your program services. What are they doing in these programs? So if you got a new hire and they've got a new teacher, what are they supposed to be doing? How's that communicated? Because you have to remember, some of your principals know, some of your principals don't. Assessments. Does the assessments reflect back on your program options and your services? Are you assessing totally general intellect, but your program was totally a creativity, artsy kind of thing? Is that truly reflective of what you should be doing? How do you make sure that they mesh? Because they should be rolling. If you're assessing for something, it should be rolling into that. And then what are you doing to prove that these students are being successful in your program services? Because we're so fast to put them in or out of the program, but how are you proving that they should step out other than their non-performance? Do you have an opportunity to have that conversation? How can we help this child before what's truly going on compared to, I'm sorry, went too fast. Compared to what is not happening. And what is your communication process? When are you communicating? How are you communicating? Do you have a nice little video for your new teachers to say this is about our GT program, or a nice little pamphlet? What is being said at your at a school district of 500 campuses? You can't be 50 campuses. You can't be at every one of those programs, but you need to know what's being communicated to those parents at those campuses or those teachers at those campuses. So some general guidelines on what should be communicated. Who's your DT contact? Who's in charge? That has been the hardest thing when helping with parents of who to contact. Some of your districts have web pages for gifted and talented. You can find that information. Some of you have nothing. So who do you contact? Who's in charge? Because you have to remember, we have so many parents coming from different places, and the first line of defense is they go to the state level because so many other states, their GT program guidance is totally state and not so much of a local district decision. Then, as we've been talking about your budgeting expenditures and those procedures that you may come up with there. So I'm going to look into this. So is it, once again, internal or external? Your external will probably be a very simple, this is the common information that everyone should know, where your internal is going to be more, this is how you hold an exit meeting with your staff. You know, this is how you do how we look at placement, we do a blind identification, those kind of things. So when you think about your current plan of action and being in compliance, so when you think about it, our first statement in the state plan is student assessment and services are in compliance with the Texas state plan. And then our second to last statement is for any standard of service in which the district is out of compliance, develop a written plan specifying actions and timelines for achieving compliance. And I think that statement right there has been the hard part for some. So look at your current practices. What have you been doing? What are you doing? Were you in alignment or out of alignment with the state plan? And then what are your targets? What are your goals? What are you trying to do at this point to get back in line, being consistent, making sure you're in compliance with the state plan? And then it might be some things might be, it is an actual target and we can hit that within the month. But then some of it is going to be more systemic, and you have to have a long-term goal and a long-term plan to get to compliance, because it's going to be step by step, because it's either going to be a mind change or you're going to have to provide professional development and relook at your structures. It might be, we got to look at the curriculum we're using. How is it sequenced? How is it structured? And then teach the teachers how to use that curriculum with the students before you can see the evidence of, this is how our structured and sequence programming reflects back into the services that we provide. So I think those are some of the things we have to look at. So I'm gonna open it back up for questions. It's 10:12. I only put about 2 hours, but I know that I don't want to keep everyone away from your work. So is there any direct questions? You can open up your mic to ask me a question out loud. So there are some, will TA provide a manual template? Is there anything out there? So yes, there are some ESCs who have developed some manuals. There has been a template we've been using for a few years now with charter schools who are amending their charters to add. I will talk with those. Thank you. Marla, she put hers out there. So there are some links out there. And then if someone wants to send me their links to their manuals, or I can put it on that resource page that we're putting out there, I will make sure that it is known that it is property of your school district and not TEA. So, but we can be a repository for those. That's one of my goals, is providing you with more resources and more documents out there. So if you don't mind sharing, just shoot me an email with that link or that document, and I will make sure it will get posted. So are there any other questions, concerns out there? Yes, Teresa. So Teresa asked, can you put all the things that we shared today, not just sample manuals? So yes, I will put that out there. I will put out, and actually I will do a finish up. I will put the recording of the Zoom. I will also go back to our Zoom chat and put that more of an FAQ version that's a little cleaner than just the chat, with the responses from today. And then those that I did not catch from the earlier part of our conversation, I will make sure that those are out there also. So yes, I will be putting all of that in. So hopefully, I will say this for sure, the Zoom link and the PowerPoint that I went through today will definitely be out there probably by tomorrow, if not later on today. I'm putting it on, it'll be linked off, I'm gonna start a new page off of the GT page. So it'll be just these Zoom links, just these pieces of information. I will also update the calendar invite. So if you got the calendar invite, it will have that link on it also. So the question is, will the October 15 meeting be the same or one, or will we go beyond? Actually, my thought process is, since these are recorded and you have the chat, I will go to the next phase with each one. So it will be a new topic at each one and not a recapture of the one that I did previously. But if you would like, if you think we need more of a recapture, I can do that. But I think we just need to keep moving as we progress on implementing the state plan and getting as much accomplished and covered over the year as we can as we move into the next phase, which will be as we're better place of how we're implementing the plan, then of how we're evaluating ourselves as districts at the state level for that certification, because that's where the next piece will come, is that certification will be going to that next level beyond just making sure you're coding it correctly, but then how are you showing that you're consistent with your services. All right. Everybody good? Hope so. Yes, I will have a new, I will send out a new invite for the 15th. And it will probably be the same link, but it will be, I will definitely send out a new invite. I hope it worked well through sending it out through your ESCs. So it will have a different number. But I will schedule that this time. So, and then one of these will be just kind of open conversation. And if you will just send me questions at some point in time, we can just have a question and answer session. So just let me know and we can go from there. But as I said, I don't want to keep you all day from your jobs, because I know you're quite busy from the phone calls I'm getting and whatsoever. But I want to say thank you. I appreciate you, and for those, I think everybody probably knows how to reach me, but we're gonna go back. For those who don't. And I said, thank you for playing with me with this new technology. It has been a learning experience. There we go. So, once again, our next meeting is the 15th, 1 p.m., new topic, and you have my email address. I answer both email boxes, and so I look forward to talking to y'all again. Thank you.